I'm Matt, and this is Island Thistle. And I've got a few sewing projects that I want to take a look at. So I've got one that's related to the boat and two that are not related to the boat. And here they are. So here's a sewing project that I've been working on. It's kind of indirectly related to the sailing and the boat, but this is an apron. So I wear one of these at work a lot to keep sawdust out of my pockets and pants. And this is just a standard apron that we get. Has the neck strap, has pen pocket, has pockets here, and then it has your standard tie. So my thought was to kind of replace this apron with something different. So I took that apron and modified it. So I started by changing the way the straps are. So I don't like the neck strap. So what I did is I converted this to an over-the-shoulder strap, cut a piece of leather to hold the straps, and bring that over to the side. I put a couple grommets in here that goes around, and then you can tie it on the back with the ties that go through the grommets. I also split the front pocket a little bit because I carry a box cutter in here a lot and to keep it from falling over. So that was kind of the first start at messing with an apron. I had to cut some off the bottom of this though, because I used about 2 inches off the bottom to make these straps up here. So those straps I made with the bottom material, and then took off the straps that were on the side where I put the grommets and attached them to the piece that I took off the bottom, just to make the straps longer. So took that and modified that into a full-on waxed canvas apron. And this apron pattern comes from a mix of that blue one that you just saw and the one that they sell, or the one they have on Sailrite, the Sailrite website. And I made it with the Sailrite sewing machine. It has some additions of some leather pieces on here as well. Instead of grommets, I went with leather pieces here because the grommets weren't big enough to hold the webbing. And you can see it's hemmed on all sides. It's got the same shoulder strap thing going on there. Another piece of leather in the back where they cross over. And it kind of, this pocket in the front is the same one that they make on the Sailrite video. And it's the same shape and everything. I did split this to make room for the box cutter. I added this little bit over here out of leather. So this is just open all the way through and lets my square sit in there. And it's got loops on the outside of leather to hook the tape measure on. And then I moved the pencil holder, instead of being on this side, over on this side because I'm right-handed. So I'm going to pull pencils from the right side. And then I put this on there for my safety glasses and my measuring things on my left side. So I can grab a pencil with the right, measuring thing with the left, and I don't have to switch hands and fumble around. So that turned out pretty good. This is using the waxed canvas, Durawax waxed canvas that Sailrite sells, and with some rivets that they sell. I actually had a bunch of rivets that I forgot I had. This leather is leftover pieces that I had from a project years ago where I recovered a motorcycle seat with leather, and it's kind of like a leather that has a faux reptile print on it, but it's just regular cow leather with that embossed stamp on there. So that was the apron sewing project. So this is the waxed canvas that I made the apron with, and it's really fun stuff to work with. It's canvas that's been soaked in wax, and it's kind of almost has like a clay feeling to it. So it folds easily, and if you need to mark it, it's easy to mark. So right now I've got this lined up where I want to put a fold. I'm just taking a scratch awl and just kind of marking along there with a scratch awl, and puts a mark on there, and that thing will come out. Like if that was going to be visible later, you could take a heat gun or a hair dryer and blow on that for a while, and that will come right out. So same thing with like any kind of scratches that you get in wax canvas, all that stuff will come out if you wanted it to. Otherwise, it kind of provides some
some character to whatever you're making. So that same thing applies for, in this case, I'm going to mark some seams here where I'm going to make a seam here. It'll be a 1/2 inch seam, and I'm going to roll the edge over. So I'm going to mark this out. But what you can do on this, with this wax canvas, if I line this back up, is I can just take this, bend it along here, and it kind of stays bent. So then I take this and just fold it down, and it stays folded. So it makes it real easy to do this. Fold that again, and it just almost, like I said, feels like clay, but I guess it's wax. And then that stays pretty flat, which makes it easy to sew. So really easy to sew this stuff. It's kind of fun that way. And just fold it up, holds its place, you put a stitch in there, and then it's done. So I guess this is not called a seam. What's it called? A hem or something like that? It's not a hem, I guess. It's just the edge of the fabric that I'm cleaning up. A rolled hem, sure, that's what it's called. Not a seam. It holds its shape really well. That'll make it easy to sew. What I'd like to get for this next, they make a sewing specific ruler that's clear. You can see through it, and it's got all the lines on it. And you just move it around. I'm using a framing square because that's all I have right now. But it'd be a little easier if you had the specific thing for this, whatever that's called, I don't know. But Sailrite sells them, and I noticed also, I was at Walmart the other day, and Fiskars sells the same version, and I think that's the same price as Walmart at Sailrite. So if you wanted something like that, it might make it a little easier. Or you could do it the hard way, like I do. It also cuts very easily with scissors, much easier than the Sunbrella fabric, which is an acrylic fabric, and you have to cut it with a hot knife. So it's nice going back to this. It's nice and hard, easy to cut, and has a nice texture and feel to it. And I like how this stuff sews too. It's just so smooth. And then you end up with a really nice looking hem if it focuses on me. And here's the mostly finished product. It's a holder for pens and pencils. It's got these individual pockets in here. It's got two larger pockets in the back behind here. I got this pocket in here for small things. Only thing I have to do left on this is I have a button or two. I'll probably put one button right here in the middle, a snap type button. So snap on there, and then this thing rolls up like this. And you could roll it up like that, like a tool roll, And then I want to figure out what I want to do on the outside, if I want to put some sort of tie strap or something on the outside, or maybe a buckle. But that's one of my other sewing projects, using the waxed canvas after the apron. And my next project, I think, is to make some more of these, maybe for some tools that I keep on the boat. So maybe, and I already have a couple of commercially made tool rolls for the boat that I've used, but maybe I can make one that's more custom for the tools that I carry on the boat.
So I redid this window in the panel that goes between the Dodger up front and the Bimini in the back. So I originally did this a couple episodes ago, and I didn't like how it turned out, so I went ahead and just redid the entire thing. Ended up having to make this a little bit bigger because of that, but I think that turned out okay. And it looks 100% better than it did before. I used a different method for attaching it together, and now all my stitching is nice and even and lined up, and everything lined up nice and pretty, because I did it the way apparently that you're supposed to do it, and not the way that I thought I should do it. So this is the way I did it previously. I had the glass material, and I put binding all around the outside edge of it. So all four sides had this binding, and the binding starts out like this. And I cut this and made this by itself, and that just gets wrapped around the edge like this, and then stitched on there. So I did that with that side. Now on the actual canvas, this is a test piece that I used, but I cut a hole in it, so this would be like an inside corner. And for the inside corner, what I did, or for the entire thing, is I also took the binding and I wrapped the binding around this edge, because I didn't want to have an exposed edge here. So when I got to the corners, I ended up taking this and complicated fold and wrapping the corners, so everything was covered in binding. So this ends up getting like a little fold in it. So it ends up looking something like this on the corners. And then that was all around the inside. So when I went to go put this together, what caused the problem is you have this inside edge that has binding, and then you have this that goes, I put this on top like that. Now the sewing machine sewed through that with no problem, but then the complicate matters even more is when I went to add on the cover, that went on there, and then trying to get all of those things lined up, and then lined up on the other side with the Velcro, things just didn't line up by the time I got to the cover. So what I did instead is, Sailrite has a video, and I'll try to put the video link in the description, but on how to make a window. And the way they do it is, instead of wrapping the binding like this, they just take the binding and put it on top of the glass just like this, and then you end up stitching one of the edges. I think it's either this edge or this edge. You stitch that, and then you take this with the glass with the binding stitched all around the outside of it, and then you put it on the piece that you're putting the window in like this, and you just stitch it on there. After everything is done, then you cut the hole. That way everything stays lined up. So I didn't do that, which made it a little bit harder. So I couldn't do that actually when I did the replacement, because I had already cut the hole in there. So then once you do this and you cut the hole out, what you end up with, or what you end up doing on the inside corners, is instead of them being exposed like this, you take you turn this into a hem. So what you would have to do is cut this like at a 45-degree angle, and then you end up folding this under, and then you fold this under, and then that gives you a hem that ends up being under this. So all this stacked together is going to kind of look like something like this, if you can make that out. But it all ends up being all stitched together and ends up with a finished edge. Now the one thing that I didn't like, that I actually changed on mine, was I didn't line my binding up just flat on the edge, because that would have meant this piece of glass edge would be exposed. Now granted, that's not going to go anywhere. I just didn't like the look of it. So what I did when I put my binding on is I took the binding like this, and I took this edge, folded it on there like that to cover up this edge of the glass, and then I did my stitches after that. So then it didn't really cause any difference or any problem from what they showed. It just I think helps cover that edge. Now the one reason why I didn't want to do or the reason why I put binding on this in the first place is because this hem, when you do an inside corner hem like this, what ends up happening is this tiny little bit in the middle here, in that inside corner, ends up being like basically untreated or like it's exposed. So it's a raw edge that ends up being exposed. Even though you're like this in the finished product, this little raw edge here just kind of irritated me. So I ended up just going ahead and doing that just like this, and left the way it is, because that's what they did on the video. So apparently that is acceptable. And plus it is Sunbrella, and then you can make that cut with a hot knife, and it will never unravel. I think even if you didn't cut it with a hot knife, it probably would never unravel, just because that's stitched together. So that's the way I put it together according to the video. Everything seemed to go okay, and it looked okay in the end.
The one thing I don't like about doing it this way is it does leave some exposed edges here. Now this is on the outside of on the top side of the panel, but where this binding is, what you're supposed to do is just cut it off, and that's been cut with a hot knife, so it's not going to unravel, but it just kind of doesn't look like 100% pretty. But it still works, and does what it's supposed to do. So I'm just going to leave it like that for now. Normally, like what I would have wanted to do is take this, and I probably could have when I put it in, and just fold it over and then have a nice neat hemmed edge. So one of the problems that I had with the last one was getting this Velcro here lined up. I tried really hard to get the top piece aligned with the bottom piece, when in reality you really don't need that, because you just have to get the panels themselves lined up, and if the Velcro's off just a little bit, that doesn't really matter, because it'll still stick. It's got plenty of stick on it. It can be off by like a 1/16 of an inch or so, and it doesn't really matter. But I tried really hard to like get it super lined up when it didn't really need to be. There's a saying that they say about boat building. I guess it goes, a carpenter works to the nearest 1/8 of an inch, a cabinet maker works to the nearest 32nd of an inch, and a boat builder works to the nearest boat. So it's true on boats, and I think true on sewing, especially because it doesn't have to be 100% down to the nearest 32nd of an inch. I can be off by a 1/16 here and there, and it's not going to make a big difference. Same thing with the way this fits on here, because the boat, it's not exactly 100% square or parallel and perpendicular, so it doesn't need to be. This doesn't need to be that way. And there it is, all rolled up in stored position. The glass has got a little bit of adhesive on it from the the tape that I used to assemble it, so I still need to clean that off, but consider it done.